Well, I'm excited about this. I was on the GS1 podcast, which is going live today, I think actually. So I'll be GS1 famous.
It's like the 12th best type of favorite famous, Definitely top like 30.
Yes. CPG GS1 C-list celebrity.
Mhm.
All right. Looks like we got a good audience starting to trickle in. Hello, everybody. We'll get started in just maybe 1 minute here. Getting all loaded up. In case anybody's curious, I've got 3 drinks on my counter for today's webinar. Got my leisure hydration, which is lovely. We had a party at their headquarters last week. And then if I get a little sleepy, I've got my Huxley here, the plant-powered energy. And then I've got my other hydration drink, which is IQ Mix. If anyone else is drinking something cool, let us know. Let me enable the chat so everybody can, let's see, everyone can chat with everyone now. And if everybody wants to maybe just uh, sound off in the chat, you can just say like what your brand is and just say hello. Just make sure you select everyone for your message, not just hosts and panelists, because if you do that, nobody gets to see it. All right, well, let's get started. Amber, if you're all ready. Cool.
All right, I'll go ahead and take it away. So
All
hello,
right.
everybody. My name is Amber Walls. I'm a Senior Director of Standards here at GS1 US, and I'll explain what that all is here in a moment. Just a quick legal blurb. All GS1 standards are voluntary, and this is really all about just showing what your options are, where you might want to navigate, the questions you might want to ask, and really helping you to make some informed next steps on what's going to be good for your business. So if you're not familiar with GS1, don't be alarmed. A lot of people aren't. What we do at GS1 globally is help make supply chain standards. And it's really changed to full value chain standards that are there to help industries move forward. Whether you're in, small CPG company, huge multinational retailer, food service, fresh foods, the whole spectrum. This is all about having a foundation for business processes to really speak one language, because your systems need to be able to communicate with your business partners. It also needs to be able to communicate within your own organization. You might have some regulatory things to comply with. This is all getting everybody into one conversation. And in my role at GS1 US, I get to work with companies all around the world, from your single individuals trying to sell a product for the first time to huge multinationals that have been around for 100 years. And what is really, really cool to see come together is how solutions for these different types of businesses can definitely meet the needs of everybody. Where you start, what flavor you take. People think that standards are one of those things that's very, very structured and rigid. But what we keep finding is there's the adaptability needed built in, so that no matter where you're starting your journey, you can go ahead and start. And that's what I want to dig into today as we talk about QR codes and this barcode stuff, and where industry is going and what you might want to benefit from. So everything you think you know about retail, whether you're a brand, you're some kind of intermediary, retailer, where you sell, just kind of keep a blank slate. What's happening with the evolution of retail right now is really revolutionary. There's all sorts of these new capabilities being able to being looked at that really change what you could maybe do with your product, the experience you can offer in store. What you want it to become is really up to you in a lot of ways right now. And that's no matter who you are, where you're from. What I'm talking about is a global initiative to give you more choice. So when I'm talking about retail point of sale and what's going to be happening with QR code and happening now, point of sale is a very, very broad spectrum term. So this could be, retail spaces like convenience stores, those that sell apparel, general merchandise, fresh foods. We have folks we're talking to that have a farmer's market. Retail point of sale is anywhere you buy those consumer goods. And that's the impact of what's happening now. It's at that scale all around the world. And we're talking about point of sale systems and what's impacted and what's going on now to update stuff. It's cashier led, it's self checkout, it's your little mobile device checkout. One tablet does it all. Also, getting into things like buy online, pick up in store. This is really the full spectrum of retail when we say retail, and we're talking about QR codes and things like that. It gets into where else can I see value? What happens post-purchase? And those are the things that are getting really, really exciting with how people are leveraging this now. So why do people care? What is the use cases? Why are we even talking about this? And depending on who you're talking to, it's going to be a mix of a wide spectrum of use cases. So I'll get into some more flavors of all of these, but these are the 6 tried and true that normally every company has at least one of. Some have all 6. So inventory management, where's my product? Can a store pick up my product and actually sell it? These are all things where you can always find ways to improve and get more efficiency about having a product where you need it, knowing that, and getting it where you need it to be. Traceability takes on a lot of interesting elements too. So normally traceability, if you can tell where it came from and where it went after it left your hands, that's sometimes good enough. But there's so many use cases and business drivers, regulatory, ethical, or otherwise, that you might need to know from original sourcing of materials to post-consumer purchase. And what that can enable when you have the right data at the right place at the right time and be able to provide that transparency to a customer can really, really be huge. I think the thing everyone jokes about, there's a Portlandia chicken thing you can Google later. If you have the right data and you can share it the right places, you can, know what the chicken you're eating ate itself 3 months ago on a Sunday afternoon. It's out there. It's just, what makes a difference and what do you want to track? Safety is another big one. And depending on what your product type is, it could be helping to enable a recall. Say that you have a product like fresh foods, car seats, toys, things that really make a difference if there's a problem, be able to find it and retract it. And not just safety of being able to do something like a recall, a supply chain thing, but being able to provide information to whoever's purchased your product about it. Could be allergens. It could be making digital disclosures like, what is in this product that I might care about. Sustainability, huge driver, major push for a lot of consumers moving to smaller businesses that can prove out their practices. So be able to share that's big. And then consumer engagement. A lot of folks right now have barcodes on their pack, QR codes that take you somewhere. That can continue to grow and get expanded upon and things like that over time. But this is really a driver of you can only do so much with your packaging. How do you take that to the next step to drive a consumer to build trust and loyalty and enjoy your product and share that word? Which really flows into the improved packaging pieces. You only have so much real estate. Your product might be sold in markets where there's multiple languages where you can't fit everything on pack. You might have 3 barcodes that you could condense into one and save that space. These are all things where people raised my hand and said, I have a problem. How can we solve for it? So to take some real world examples and what we're seeing people implement on their products now in terms of the small business space and beyond are things like, where was this food coming from? Was this, organic? Was it ethically sourced? How were the animals treated? These are definitely things that people care about that's driving people to make more purchases and engage with that product beyond the purchase. Incentivizing purchases. So there's a lot being done to where, you could be in store holding a product, you get your phone out, #1 mobile scanner in the world, and you might get a promotion or a discount to help drive that trial, to help get that purchase made, or maybe incentivize a future purchase once you have that product home and you're scanning it, keeping that conversation going with your consumers. Also, social media sharing is a huge, huge thing. Sweepstakes, promotions, all of that type of thing. People want to talk about their cool products and share. And when they have an easy way to do that when the product's in their hand, it can be a game changer. And then on this slide too, a recipe, how to use it, how to make this product part of your lifestyle is something that's been a huge driver on that consumer engagement piece to really, really strengthen that relationship. And again, this isn't just really a food conversation. This is all product types. Toys, how to play with things. Just looking at that kid, you might want to do a cutest baby competition, drive some sharing, drive some likes, things of that nature. In terms of the health and beauty space, having influencers being able to be linked to, I need as much help as possible in videos and tutorials and handwritten instructions on how to apply false eyelashes. Please just put that on the product when it's in my hand. Those are the types of things doing of, hey, these products are natural. Here's how you use them. Here's how you get the most from them. And here's the other product that goes with this you might want to try to enhance your results. Really what we're seeing to a lot in the small business space is here's our ethical sourcing. Here's our materials that went into this. Here's not only how you can recycle this product, but actually upcycle it in a cool way and share that story. And a lot of these products too, that last picture of creating that community amongst the product, you know, here is your demographic, here's who you're targeting, curate some content that gets them out using the product and talking about it. And for those in regulated spaces, I know healthcare especially, you might have hand sanitizer, Band-Aids, supplements that fall under US FDA regulations. There's requirements around barcoding that use these types of 2D barcodes that you're going to want to be informed about. There's a lot of resources to help there. So to kind of draw this back, why, again, are we talking about 2D barcodes? All of those use cases I just went through that have been priorities for businesses around the world of all sizes come down to getting the right information to the right place at the right time. The lines and spaces barcode on the screen now, it's called a UPC. This month is the 50th anniversary, the first time that was scanned at retail point of sale. Capturing stories about what happened before that first scan. I think one of my favorites is there is a gentleman that was a cashier that used to take Aquanet and use that to rub off the prices before they restamped it. Then you manually type it in. Game-changing types of stuff when you just have an easy way to capture data. And that's great. But these other barcodes, these grid ones, types of 2D barcodes, both of those ones are actually hitting their 30th anniversary this year too. So they're not new technologies, which has a lot of benefits. Systems are already optimized around these. You see QR codes everywhere. If you want an interesting icebreaker, ask somebody the weirdest place they've seen a QR code. Might not be work appropriate. They're everywhere. So these are things where this technology is out there, it's in use. There's already infrastructure to support it. And industry raised their hand and said, this is what we want to help get this data where we need it, in the way we need it. So this whole webinar, this is definitely about QR code, which we'll focus on. But I do want to highlight there are some other options in retail in terms of 2D barcode. So the term 2D barcode refers to all the stuff you see here on the screen. The grid pattern, little dots all over there, lots of different types of 2D barcodes that serve different purposes. QR code's the one there, and it's nicely highlighted in the middle. These other options are available because not everybody needs what a QR code offers up. So that consumer experience, that instant, I'm going to point my default phone camera, makes the magic happen with the consumer experience, isn't for everybody. Some folks just need more data. You might need something like an expiration date to help stop the sale of an expired product at point of sale, or maybe a batch lot number if you fall under a certain regulation, or you want to be able to track with more granularity your products that moves in the supply chain. If you just need more data, but you don't necessarily need that consumer experience, there's a barcode that's there for you. And it takes less setup steps than having to connect everything online. So again, we're going to stick largely to the QR code, but especially those like in the fresh food space, complying with some regulations that take extra data. Those are all things that you might want to like look into and just know that there's some stuff beyond QR code that might be a good fit.
Those other ones, like
Mhm.
it's maybe like, why wouldn't you go for the QR code? Because one, it looks like maybe if you can't fit it on the pack, like the other ones are smaller
Yeah.
somehow, and two, maybe they're cheaper. I don't know, to generate a bunch of different ones. Or
In terms of the actual printing of these, it's pretty similar. You're using the same types of technologies. There's some pros and cons, and if you want to follow up and get nerdy with me on the makeup and structure of these and which one's better and why, I can do that. But normally that's how you get kicked out of parties, is getting into that.
all right, so safe to
And
assume we'll just
yeah,
focus on
so
QR codes.
when you get a QR code though, the whole thing is it gets an online experience, which means that you have to take the step of taking whatever data is encoded in that barcode, which I'll provide some examples of later, and connecting it somewhere online. You have to set that up and maintain it. If you don't have a priority as a consumer experience piece of it, and you don't necessarily aren't ready to do that connection, And you just need the more data piece, then this other barcode's a great first step. Like in-store labeled products where you're doing like a variable measure where every single label's different, that's a little bit complex. You need the extra data, like you need to know the price point or weight to process it. You don't need the other stuff. You can always start with one or the other. The other thing on this bottom one, which is using the digital link data format, which I'll talk about here in a bit, this type of barcode can become rectangular, which doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it can be really a game changer if you have small, thin products or things that are cylindrical. Think like your eyebrow pencils, your some definitely cosmetic stuff, candy, stuff like that. The way these barcodes are captured is it just takes a picture, like your scanner, your phone, whatever you're using, it just takes a picture of it and then begins to process what those grids mean. But it has to be able to see the entire thing and see it flat enough where it's not distorted. And that's where it gets really tricky with barcodes, 2D barcodes fitting. Um, but you know, that'll be round two. If you want to get real nerdy with me, we can do that more. So again, this is a conversation about the data. And if it's not doing what you need it to do, then you know it's not purposeful. And not everybody needs different data is the thing. That plain blue barcode section there at the first, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you don't need data, you don't need the consumer experience, you don't have to change anything. But these, again, are options for you with what's going to make sense for your business. So the G10 is the product identifier. That's what gets scanned and does the price lookup and helps you make sure you're talking about the same product everywhere is that ID. So this example has an expiration date as well as a batch lot number. When you go into those middle barcodes, the GS1 data matrix, it's just taking that and putting it so in one barcode, you could capture an expiration date and a batch lot right along with it. You could stop the sale of an expired product. You could say, wait a moment, this product's part of a recall based on this batch number. I want to capture that. You can do those things if you need to. What's different about QR code is it's taking all of those data elements that's used throughout supply chain now, and it puts them in a web-friendly format. So if you look in the bottom right corner, nice color-coded stuff, it looks just like a website you would type into your browser now. You know, this is just like a link you would click in an email. The only difference is we have those structured data pieces where a point of sale system could still pull out that product identifier to do lookup and everything it's doing. But it also lets the consumer just point their phone and go wherever you want to go.
So kind
So
of kind of interesting to think about this because so a lot of us, let's say you're like a beverage company and you've got your barcode, you know, on the back here. You know, if you replace that with the QR code, the challenge would be when we print these cans, we print hundreds of thousands and they use the same can across multiple different production runs. So like, you know, even maybe if you can't modify, like if you don't have the tech yet to change the QR codes based on when it's actually printing, maybe that'll happen someday. You could at least do it when you're printing trays, right? Because like the trays, the secondary packaging, that stuff does usually actually get printed at the production level, like because you know all your trays are the same, and then they'll actually like print best by dates and which SKU it is or whatever. So like maybe even immediately that would be more of an opportunity.
yeah, and again, it's what's your current print lines look like and processes. For a lot of companies I've talked to, they're like, yeah, we don't want to pull this into play immediately. What we're going to start to do is end up as we do a new product launch, is we have an already scheduled packaging redesign. We're just going to switch to this format. A lot of companies, again, are already using QR codes. Smart Label is a great example. You see that on all sorts of food products. They're like, okay, well, next time we go to redesign our packaging, we're just going to update how the data is structured so it can be used for point of sale too. The extra data, again, batch lot, serialization, where every single one's different, sell by whatever dates, you don't have to have those unless there's a regulatory piece requiring them. Those are totally optional on if they're going to add value to your business. And some companies are saying, yeah, we just want to start with just that consumer engagement bit. That's what's important. And we're going to move to the other stuff over time because that's just going to take some more time for us to enable in our systems.
And so I think you explained this pretty well, but just to confirm for everybody, so they're kind of like two elements to this QR code. One of them is like retailer facing, let's say, where it has that info that they need, the G10 and some of these extra elements you can code into there as well. And then if you're a consumer using the same QR code, basically it's going to point them to a website. like
Yeah.
whatever, like you would set up the website or whatever where you want this thing to link to,
Mhm.
and whether you want to have coupons offered on that website or nutritional info or whatever it is, you can kind of choose and change that whenever you want.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to the next piece of this. So there's a lot that was been thrown out there in terms, and it's really easy to get muddled because there's so many choices and options for what you do and what's your business priority. Let's untangle that. So again, when we're talking like this GS1 digital link term, that's how that data is structured in the barcode that lets your phone read it and do internet things. And then a point of sale system, general distribution scanners, whatever, take the supply chain bits. So if you hear the GS1 digital link, you're searching that, buzzword comes up, that all that is how the data is structured that lets all these things happen. And you do need a specific data structure. The QR code you might have printed on your pack now would have to be updated to this format so that scanners can look at it, parse out that data, and actually use it for their processes. That's the standards fit structured. And what the barcodes are there for is purely to hold the data for systems to act on. What's really interesting is when you get into having these retailers enable more capabilities is it begins to not matter what the type of barcode is. Or you could be using an RFID tag. We're seeing that in the apparel space. You have your little hang tag, RFID for all these non-line of sight inventory management use cases are great. As long as the data is structured, you essentially can just pull it into whatever system if it can be read. So you get towards a data carrier agnosticism, meaning the data carrier doesn't matter because we're getting the data we need, which gives you as a brand owner or labeler those choices of what can you print, what makes sense to enable your use cases, because if it can be read, you get those decisions on what makes sense. So barcodes. Had a gentleman always said, there's a dumb bucket. They're just carrying stuff. That's all they're for. Then the standardized GS1 data is what identifies the product. So the barcode carries the identifier. Now, what gets kind of tricky here, because the art of the possible is so vast, is where that data, that middle layer, takes you to is up to the brand owner. And you can change that without changing the packaging. And this is something that happens all the time. And the beautiful thing about standards is when they're working well, you don't have to realize they're working. Like, do you ever have to really know how Wi-Fi works? You just know you can connect to it everywhere. It's because of standards. So with
Uh,
GS1
just one,
Digital,
just one
oh,
question on that. So, like, okay, today when I set up a barcode, I go into
mhm,
the GS1 platform and I put in the information, and you guys generate the G10, and then it has
mhm,
the info. In this future state, with when there, like, let's say when there's just a QR code and not
mhm.
a UPC, like, do we need to maintain that? Like, do we need to is this website, is that like on our website and we have to make sure there's a page that actually has that, or that website lives on GS1 and we're going to have to be in the portal just making excuse me,
You
just
don't
making sure to update the like sell by info and that, or
No, you don't have to update anything in the portal. You can do all of this with never logging into GS1 anything. Once you have your identifier, this is the same identifier going in a QR code that you're using in your 1D UPC now. It's just
okay.
getting structured differently. So you don't have to get more numbers. It's the same one in a different data carrier. What you do want to avoid, again, not just related to this topic, just in general on the web, is the dead link. So if you set something up and you have the structure, what can happen is if its website's not maintained, sometimes there's like weird solution provider things. You click on it, it doesn't go anywhere, or it gives you the dreaded 404 area error of what's here doesn't exist. There's lots and lots of support tools and things that the GS1 things can do, but a lot of times this is actually maintained through whoever is setting up marketing stuff, or companies this lives with like their web team or IT team. Or I talked to a gentleman last week where he did the whole thing, and he was using the same platform he used for his email campaigns he sent out to folks to set up this redirect that's going what's in the QR code to where they want to go.
Okay, so it sounds like similar as to how I set up the info now. I'll be in the
Mhm,
GS1 portal. It'll have the G10 and any other information that the retailer is going to see. Like, it's going to have the sell
mhm.
by date or whatever. That'll all be
Yep.
there in the system. I don't have to worry about it. And then basically I can choose to enter the link for the QR code if I want that
Yeah,
to go to my website, and obviously I have to maintain that for
yeah.
consumers.
And I
Okay.
do see all the great questions coming to chat. I'm going to try to weave them into the flow, and if not, I'll hit them up when we get to the Q&A time. So again, there's choice. The thing that with GS1 Digital Ink, with QR codes, standards, and all this stuff is you got to have your cake and eat it too. The supply chain stuff will work. The consumer engagement stuff will work once all the updates are out, you know. And the thing that gets really kind of complicated to explain, but actually we're finding it's not too bad for people to implement, is where you can change the flavor. You can figure out how much you want to share. I could do cake analogies and metaphors all day, so I'm going to just stop myself. Um, so what's encoded in the barcode stays static. This has just the G10, the product identifier in it. But when you click on this, it redirects. So when you actually look at your web browser, what that says is different. And this happens all the time. Almost any website link you're going to click in an email is going to do the same thing. So if you want to do an Olympics experience or change something for the summer or point something to a limited time promotion, you can go on the back end and say, I want this thing that's encoded in the barcode to now take people here. And once you click that, the update goes out, and then anyone scanning that QR code will get the new experience you just dictated without you having to change the packaging. Um, and that's one of those things where, again, it's really, really interesting, and it's kind of fun talking to companies of just finding the person that's already doing this in your company, for like your marketing campaigns, your emails, your website. It's the same deal. You're just starting with the QR code piece. So some key points to reiterate on this one is if you're a brand, you don't have to move to 2D barcodes. You don't have to use QR code. This is a choice. Unless the government is mandating something, there's a regulatory thing. It's you be you. And you get to pick which barcode makes sense for you. For most folks in especially the CPG, apparel, retail space, they're going to QR code. But fresh food, some of the healthcare things, they're choosing different 2D barcodes, and there's options for a reason. For retailers, you have to enable all three of these options to give brands the choice. Again, it's essentially data carrier agnosticism. Because the standards are in place, it doesn't matter what barcode it's coming from of the three. It'll translate it and it goes into the retailer system the same way. And all of the linear 1D UPC barcode options, those are going to remain the same. We get asked all the time at GS1 with Sunrise 2027, enabling 2D at retail by the end of 2027. Well, when's 1D going to get sunset? And that won't happen until the whole of the retail community around the world says, yeah, we don't need this anymore. I have several decades before I can retire. I don't think it's going to happen in my career here. So again, 1D is not going away. And
And sorry,
actually,
a few people had, oh, I think you're getting into the next slide, actually. Sorry.
oh no, you're
Um,
good. So it is the natural question that gets asked. So 1D barcodes have to remain in systems until 2D is ready. So if you already have UPC 1D barcode on your package, you can't take that off, because what would happen if you did is it might go to some retailers that haven't enabled the 2D bit, and then they can't scan anything. So around the world, because this is a global initiative, GS1's working with a lot of different organizations to track and trend and quantify, what percentage of retail is capable. There's a pretty cool thing on the Global Office website where they're actually going around to scanner hardware providers. They're going to be doing barcode verifiers, printers, software creation, and getting these companies to attest whether or not their solutions are 2D capable. Like you can see the actual model number and can they do this? And that just launched last month, but it's going to be a really nice thing for, okay, here's what I have in my, I'm buying something, or here's what I have, is it capable? Just, plug and play stuff. Um, so again, this is no matter where you're starting from, you can start. And that starting point could just be an internal conversation of, do we want to look into this more? That's totally valid. We have
so
some
it's
folks
so it
that say
sounds
we're ready now.
like the if um the earliest that people should be thinking about only QR codes could be like 2027 right now, where
Yeah.
they would. Okay.
Yeah, the only places we're really seeing that happen sooner is there's some retailers where their products aren't sold anywhere else, like their private label, really, really closed supply chains. Where like Woolworth is like Australia's largest grocer, they went to only using a GS1 data matrix type of 2D barcode because their fresh foods are only sold in their stores. So they went ahead and took it off. So you'll hear stories about that where it is only a 2D barcode, only a QR code, but it's in those retailers and more of their in-store private label products. Um, so resources, kind of, okay, where am I starting from? You got some stuff that can help, and just email me. It's actually my job to answer any questions you have on this, so happy to help. So there's a mix of things. So standards, when I'm talking about that, these are the core rules that you have to follow. This is the grounding thing that makes this work across systems. I'm going to admit, nobody really reads those. It's fine. You don't have to. They're like hundreds of pages. I get it. There's a lot of guidance documents are out there, and that's really what a lot of users find handy because it has a lot more images and scenarios and real world things you might be encountering. Lots of different things specific to the brand owner, the retailer, technologist that digs into how to make this more successful and apply those standards in the real world. One of my favorite things, and if you're kind of a techie developer on the call, is a lot of the tools that have been developed that let people integrate standards in a much faster, consistent way. I'll talk about that in a moment. And there's a mix of collateral. I mean, one of the big things we hear all the time is I want to know what other people are doing before I make my decisions. So you have case studies we have, there's advocacy videos, there are a lot of data points and good microlearnings just kind of came out in the US. There's all sorts of other things of different flavors that are more kind of those digestible bites that help you figure out what your set of questions are. So, we can have all the links, we can send these out. There's a load of stuff available. Couple things I want to highlight here. One question we get asked all the time is how big is my barcode going to be? It depends on what data goes in it. So we can't give you an exact answer. So feel free to email me. If you email me that question, you're going to get it depends and be disappointed. Like, I'm sorry. But we do have things like the GS1 module count tool, which is a terrible way of naming a tool that you can just put in data, play with it. It'll structure it correctly and show you exactly how big that barcode would be. So it fits your story and you can kind of begin to get into, okay, this would fit on my packaging, types of printers I use would be able to accommodate this, that type of thing. So loads of stuff depend on what you're most interested in. So some of the key things of all those resources that people ask about the most. I'm freshly back from GS1 US's annual conference on GS1 Connect, and I had hundreds of questions. These are the big ones. So UPC, G10, your product identifiers, what's required for point of sale. Everything else is totally optional. So when kind of thinking about what am I going to do, whether I'm a brand or a retailer, what data do I want to enable, it's what are you going to use it for? Like an expiration date is you could stop sell the expired product. You do automatic price markdowns. If you want to go above and beyond as a retailer, you can take that expiration date, track it in your transaction log, figure out how far, out products are being purchased and optimize your inventory. Or send somebody a promotion saying, hey, seeing your product's expired, incentivize a repurchase. It's as far as you want to take it and where you want to start and get there is all your business decision. And then can the use case be achieved by linking to online information? So you only put in the barcode the supply chain stuff. So price lookup, item identifier, expiration date for freshness management. You might have variable measure attributes like weight or price, like country of origin. Some people are using for things with some regulatory ask. Serial number is a really interesting one, especially in the apparel space. Kind of cool when you can see here's what each individual instance of my product's doing. What you link to. So not what's in the barcode, but where the barcode takes you could be your product details, your traceability information, certificates, awards, disclosures, promotions, all of that good fun stuff is where this takes you. Doesn't go in the barcode itself. And that's going to prevent you from having a giant barcode that's not going to fit. Which really, if you use all like 4,000 QR code characters, it's about that big. It's like 4 by 4 inches, which could fit on some stuff. Um, Barcode placement's another big thing we get lots of questions about, and there is extensive lab and real world testing, and a lot of people trying to break a lot of things to make sure this was good. And if you're familiar with where you're supposed to put a 1D barcode, 2D barcodes are very similar. Same type of placement. It helps with consistency with using different scanning technology where people are used to seeing them. There's actually a lot with repetitive motion injuries if you put barcodes the wrong spot. So all that's in play for these rules still. Also interesting for QR codes specifically is a lot of brands said, I want this front of pack. I want you to be able to point your phone at this barcode while it's on the shelf. And also like retailers and folks are like, yeah, it saves a lot of time if I can use my machine vision or my cashiers picking products can just do it on the front of pack without picking it up. Previously, it's like, no, hide that barcode on the back. I don't want to see it. It's being used for more. So you're seeing that happen. The placement also needs to consider the text that comes with it. And there's lots of rules and guidance around where you put barcodes and it's scanned twice. So when you have two barcodes, there's system logic built into scanners that looks at them both and only picks one, but that there's constraints around when that works. And as mentioned, not all barcodes can fit on all product types. So again, those small, cylindrical, round type of things you might have some problems with. And my last slide here is really a game changer in some standard stuff, especially if you've had to deal with this before these updates. Human readable text wasn't actually readable by a human. Bad name. So if you look at this middle image here, you have 01, big long number, 30, 15. Those are identifiers that say, hey, this following thing's a G10, count, sell by date, what have you, or this before date. The standard actually allows for you to put that in a way that people can actually read it, and gives guidance and best practices. So having it say best before March 11th, 2030, or if you're different markets, 11 MAR 30 might make more sense. You don't have to have the text that matches what's in the barcode exactly on your package now. And there's lots and lots of good guidance around that. So with that, I'm done with slides, which is normally everybody's favorite part of the presentation. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything or we can start digging into some of these questions in chat.
Yeah, let's get into some of the questions. I saw one just coming in around like placement of QR. So in the can that I'm holding, okay, maybe you can not totally see it, but here's the barcode. And then if I turn it a little, it says scan for to learn more. And I can imagine like a lot of brands, especially if you're selling through Amazon or something, like you're hoping that they're going to scan it because you want their email. You want to be able to have a direct relationship with them. Yeah. What do you think about placement? Because I saw early on you kind of had one with the QR code right next to the barcode, but basically like totally up to the brand, right? Like wherever they want to put it.
There are some technical things. So if you have it on the same panel, like that back of pack, the closer you can get the two barcodes together, the better for it is for the actual technology scanning. You can put things on adjacent panels, things don't fit. There's also some things too with certain disclosures. You have to put the QR code so close to that information on pack. There's all sorts of stuff there. But it largely is up to the brand owner with just a few rules and guidance pieces around it. And then when you get to a 2D only world, so once people have enabled everything and you can just have a QR code and nothing else, you can put it anywhere. Essentially, there's still best practices just for ease of use accessing it, but the world's changing. Like the amount of vision systems and especially type of equipment and the buy online, pick up in store where people are interfacing with the front of a package more, we're going to continue to see that evolve, and standards will definitely evolve with it.
Have you seen any best practices or people you think are doing a really good job of getting people to actually scan the QR code? Like I like the one here that says scan to learn more, but it's not front of pack. Anything to like maximize. And also I'm wondering if do you have any anecdotal data about how many people are actually scanning QR codes now from a consumer perspective?
That's a great question. And that's something we continue to look at, like what's the data point? It's so varied based on product type and market. And we got asked all the time, and right in the global guidelines, this was a huge evergreen topic of, should there be something saying you're supposed to scan it? So in terms of best practices there, especially with QR code, consumers know to scan it. There's been tests and studies, you're going to see that you have the recognition, you point your phone at it. It's just behavior. Um, the thing is, what normally you don't have to put scan because they know to show it. What we see coming back more is getting some sort of incentive to scan it. So what are you scanning it for? Is it an experience? Is it a sweepstakes? Is it something cool, recipes? Why do I want to scan it? Um, there is a comment made of whatever I need to be accessing is going to need to be more interesting than everything else on my phone. It's like, ooh, that's a challenge. I got some cool stuff on my phone. So it's really understanding what your audience is and what they care about. There's some product types where the sustainability information, freshness, nutrition is a huge driver. There's other products where I know this isn't healthy. It's actually why I'm buying it. um, what are you going to give me that's really matching my consumer preferences? And again, the coupon things incentivize the scan is always, a huge, huge deal across any type of product.
It's pretty interesting. And, I was just thinking about like, why do I sign up for
Mhm.
companies that do the SMS blasts? Well, it's
Yeah.
almost always because they're offering me a discount, right? So like, I kind of like that. Like, oh, recipe and discounts or something with the key, like preempting the QR code or something like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, if I'm going to get a discount, I might sign up for that. If not, like, you're not getting my, email. I know.
Yeah. And
Um,
there's things too, like when you scan a QR, when you click a link, when you're accessing the interweb, there's certain pieces with the right opt-in, like cookies and tracking, you can get and offer customized experiences. Some of the other things that we see be really successful that are more complicated to set up, but can happen is, having things appear in different languages automatically. If I'm in a different part of the country and there's sporting events going on, I see my home state team, someone else sees theirs based on geolocation. Time of day changes what you link to. Again, all things done right now with email links that you can do here to give that more dynamic, customized experience and individualize it and get the data points, see what's happening, see what's scanning, and adapt because you can change what it links to. You just can't change the packaging readily.
all right. So, well, I think a lot of the questions have asked kind of similar things. I'm just scanning
Mhm.
through them. So just to remind everybody, they're kind of two elements when you'll have the QR code. One is readable by retailers. GS1 will take care of that as you're setting stuff up with them. Because when you register the G10 with them and get the QR code, you'll be entering in the product info, and then I think you'll have the option to enter in, sell by date or, the other element. And then
Yeah.
you
On
would also then, yep.
yeah, on that one, really real quick, I want to make sure there's a good clarification point because if you're using the Data Hub platform to create your barcodes now, which is a great tool that we see a lot of value for, like the 1D barcodes and even some of the stuff used on your cases, that currently is not enabled for QR code. So you will not be able to go in there today. You're going to take the G10 that's in your 1D barcode now, or you just generated. Actually getting the QR code will be extra steps. And again, my email's in the chat. I'll put it in there again before we leave, and I can give you those steps too, how you can get that QR code and the back end stuff to make it work. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. You won't be able to hop on that website and do that, today.
So is it today, if you want to get the QR code, is it like a separate price? Do you have to pay extra for that? Or is it
I
linking
mean,
to the same thing?
it depends how you go about it. From what you pay GS1, you use the G10s you've already licensed. It's nothing different there. It's how you're acquiring that QR code. We've seen some businesses use some of the free online tools to generate it. You just make the data structure right. Happy to check it for you real quick. And then you can print on your packaging. How you connect that to whatever it goes. Again, it depends what you already have set up and how you're doing that with your web links now. So
Okay,
it
so I
is.
just want to make sure I understand that, because like, I mean, like with barcode, like the 1D ones. I mean,
Mhm.
GS1, as far as anyone I've ever talked to, GS1 is the place to get because it's like the global standard for
Mhm.
barcodes. They're the best place. Like there are some other places you can get it, but you run a risk of it not maybe working with a lot of people. So like then in the future for QR codes, probably you could actually get that QR code kind of wherever, but you still would need to work with GS1 to then link it into the retailer systems.
Yeah, so the identifier that goes into it, the identifier that's in your UPC now, it's the same one that goes into a QR code. It's identical. Nothing's changing with that number. You don't have to update systems to be able, like, okay, now we have this number in a different barcode. The systems can just read it once they're enabled. Generating the barcode graphic, the image of the QR code that you will print onto your product, wherever you want to put it. That is where there's options available. It wouldn't get generated through the GS1 US website.
Okay, so you once you have the identifier, like you could actually get a third party to create it as long as it's
Mhm.
going to accurately do the coding so that it hits that identifier. And
Yeah.
then Carolyn had just asked, like, oh, I've seen companies create custom design QR codes, like shapes, colors, cool stuff. So you would basically just need to give them that identifier info, and
Mhm.
then like they can kind of do what they're going to do with it as long as
Exactly.
it still scans, which you can
Yeah.
probably in this new world is a little bit easier to check since you can check it with your phone.
Yeah, and if you're generating QR codes already, but just not the GS1 standards bit, you can use those same tools. You're just changing how the data that's going in that QR code looks. So the custom design stuff, kind of just proceed with caution. When you get a lot of different like colors, it can hurt scanning. But yeah, if you're already using a tool to generate a QR code you're putting on your product, you can continue to use that tool. You're just going to change the way the web address you're putting in is formatted. And again, to reach out to me, if you can give me your stuff and I can give you some examples just to make sure you're on the right track.
And in terms of checking the QR codes, let's say you are trying some cool colors and stuff.
Mhm.
Like it could scan on your phone, but maybe not scan for somebody else. Are there any like conditions that you would recommend for people to test it in, like low light, highlight, like some kind like direct sunlight? I don't know.
Yeah, the kicker on this, with people are used to the QR codes only being scanned by a mobile device, is supply chain systems, retailer scanners use different technology. The big thing is they use red light. Things look really different under red light than they do natural light or fluorescent light or whatever you might encounter in the store. So if it scans great on your phone, it might not scan great in a retailer. So the end all be all for checking barcode quality is using what's called a barcode verifier. There's also solution providers that offer this service. And it takes it and grades it on all of these criteria. You know, is the contrast right? Is it uniform? The whole deal. If you don't have access to that or it doesn't make sense for you right now, you can. We have a guideline which I'll drop in chat. It was a link that gives you the best practice of, if you're going to be changing things around, here's the stuff that's probably going to break it the most. Um, so the barcode verification is your best bet. It's your end all be all. Sometimes you can partner with a retailer or something like, hey, I'm going to send you some of my products. Can you test them on your systems? And because a lot of retailers are in the testing phases and piloting and making sure everything's good to go before they go live, very, very receptive to getting, brand products to say, yeah, we'll test it. We'll see if it works.
Awesome. Okay. And then Justin had asked again about, can you change the expiration date information where it links to on the website? So like basic, and just to confirm, because this is
Mhm.
definitely learning for me. So it's like you can put in the expiration date, whatever you want. You'll be able to enter it into the
Mhm.
GS1 hub. But
Mhm.
remember, like the QR code, unless you change the actual what the QR code is in the packaging, you don't want to be changing the expiration date because it'll be printed on multiple different runs and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it may make more sense for some people to be creating multiple QR codes and GTINs
Mhm.
for the or just the QR codes for like the secondary packaging, the cases and stuff that might align better that can be printed during production.
Exactly. So some print lines can do this now. It's not a problem. Other ones it is. So it's kind of most commonly referred to as static versus dynamic data. Static being it's the same package, has the same data every single time. You're not changing anything. When you get into dynamic data, like an expiration date, a batch lot number, definitely serial numbers, that complicates things. The kicker is you have to have something unique in the barcode to link to something different. So you wouldn't be able to change what individual products link to on an expiration date unless there's some indicator in the barcode you can do that. I mean, the example of what we see most commonly with the dynamic data example is, okay, I have batch lot numbers, there's a recall. I scan one set of batch lot numbers, the product's good to go, consume well, valued customer. And the impacted ones say, hey, this product is part of a recall. Here's how you deal with it. But you can only do that because those barcodes have something different, the different batch lot number that lets you route people differently. And that's the same case for the expiration date. It has to be in there to be actioned upon and have it be different from the products that have different information.
And so, I mean, with like beverages, for example, I mean, we're seeing a
Mhm.
lot more digital print, and that probably would enable
Mhm.
people to even like you could have multiple barcodes that actually have the same G10, but different expiration dates, different
Yeah.
lot codes, stuff like that. So that's a pretty
Yeah.
exciting world to think about.
Yeah, and in like the beverage space, a lot of those companies they just want consumer they don't need the extra data. One of the things that's rolling out, I think it's launching this month, and they're partnering with GS1 US with some like videos and like, kind of explaining their story. Ship Bottom Brewery has some products with a QR code using GS1 Digital Ink, where you can they can go to a sweepstakes thing, printing on a can, but it's the same QR code. It's doing everything they need to do. Not everybody needs the extra data, and if you don't need it, don't feel like compelled that that has to be your starting point. You can also get the benefits of just the digital experience, and then add in that dynamic data, that changing data once it makes sense for your organization. You don't have to do it now. It can be a phased approach.
Okay, amazing. I actually think we got to most of the questions. If anyone has a last one, feel free to drop it in the chat here. But I think we got to most of the stuff. And then I'm also just going to repaste Amber's email here. I think that's a really incredible offer. And again, just for everyone who is kind of newer to barcodes
Mhm.
and G10s, GS1 is the standard. We're really grateful that they're a partner of ours at Startup CPG because I have been through the process personally of setting up barcodes on their website. And, I think as easy as they try to make it, still you have some of those high anxiety questions like, wait, what is a pack UPC versus a, case UPC and all these things. So we just really appreciate them being so accessible and being in our Slack channel even. I know Caitlin is on there and always jumps on to answer a bunch of questions. So I'm going to just repaste the email here. So thank you, Amber.
Mhm.
Um, and let's see, I saw there's one last question. I don't know if that was different.
Yeah, so that last question on the small business with socks is, future state, the 1D UPC you're putting on there now in a 2D only world, you use that exact same identifier. It just is going in different barcode. We see labels where there's a 1D, a 2D, and then an RFID tag, and they're all using the same identifier. You're just changing out the data carrier using it. Nothing changing there.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. This is really exciting to just think about how much it could help us if we, have to go through the horror of a recall, or if we want to just give consumers a lot more information about where the product comes from and, what went into it, and just kind of thinking about how everyone in the supply chain could start doing that just to have, really incredible transparency and, improvements in customer experience and food safety. All that stuff is very cool. So thank you again, Amber, and thank you, Caitlin Friedman, who's in our Slack as well. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's been great.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for all the
Bye.
questions, too.